Heavy Chef is a learning platform for entrepreneurs. Our core belief is that entrepreneurs can change the world for the better, right? So we really believe in a world that has a ton of problems, and in a world where education of entrepreneurs is broken, that it's the entrepreneurs here that can solve the biggest, the most pressing, the most salient problems that we are facing, and we can do it faster and more efficiently than any other sector of society. And so our aim is really to inspire entrepreneurs to start projects and then empower them to succeed. The way we do that is what we call platform and programs. We create recipes that sit on our learning platform, and we create learning programs where we have our cohorts of entrepreneurs that consume the learning bites that we create. And these learning bites, these little units of education, these little nuggets of knowledge, are essentially the raw material that are used in those learning programs to learn about how to start and scale and sell your business, and pretty much everything in between. Those learning bites are served up by what we call heavy chefs. The name comes from the saying, never trust a skinny chef. It basically means that the people who deliver that knowledge are people that speak with authority, that eat their own food, so to speak. So I want to encourage all of you guys, if you haven't yet, to go to heavychef.com, have a look around, poke about, and let me know what you think. You can contact us directly, give us feedback, sign up to the platform, get involved, interact and engage. It's something that's growing steadily. We've been building this thing for the last couple of years, and it's really starting to rock and roll. So we've got some exciting plans ahead. And I just before I carry on, I just want to say a massive thank you to our team, in particular Juja, Siabonga, Mo, who's our head of learning, Randall, Bronwyn, Nicola, Louis, Landie, Zola, Charmaine, Lucanio, Zinhle, and the whole crew who's been working solidly and tirelessly on this mission. We have so much fun doing what we do, and it's so amazing to see in real life the people behind the screens actually coming in person to engage and interact with us. So welcome everybody, and it's good to see everybody out in the wild again. I just want to encourage anyone who is interested in coming out to community gatherings. We are having one again in October. We're focusing on values-based businesses, and it's featuring Robin from Faithful to Nature. She's just one of the most incredibly inspiring people, and another incredibly inspiring newcomer, Kanya from Matawi, who is just such an inspiring individual, starting an eco-friendly liquor company. Check it out. It's really flippin' cool. And she's shaking a few trees in a very non-eco-friendly environment. So also, just before I hand over to Zinhle, I just want to say a massive thank you to our core partners, Payfast and Xero, who've supported us all the way from the beginning. Nilo, some of the crew are here. Hola, Nilo. Just the best hosting company in the world. And I say that with authority as a heavy chef because I've been using them for 20 years. So I definitely know. Capitalize, who's a fairly new partner for us, and basically the people who are providing the fuel and oxygen for so many businesses in South Africa. Whipping the Cat, which is a legal company, one of the most awarded legal companies in South Africa. Workshop17, this amazing venue that you find yourself sitting in. Backsberg, the tasty wine in the back. Surf Fruit, Goodleaf, Parcel Ninja, Creed Living. They're just also an amazing partner of ours. And then Black Maverick, our tech partners in Johannesburg. Just one quick thing. We do have a prize today, and the prize is a Heavy Chef hamper. This mysterious package behind me over here. It is packed full of goodies. It has a bottle of wine. It has some of those Creed Living collagen beauty bullets. For those of you who are interested in beauty bullets, I actually don't know what a beauty bullet does, but I assume that you take it and then you become just more beautiful. It also has a ton of collagen sachets, and it has a signed book by none other than me. The book that I wrote called How to Start a Business in South Africa, which talks about starting, selling, and scaling and selling a business. So it's pretty good. At least my mom told me so. So the way to win the prize is we have a group of tax and fiduciary specialists from Investec at the back. You're going to be pouring through the questions tonight and the tweets. How many of you on Twitter, by the way? Hands up, those of you on Twitter? Okay. So Twitter is not doing so well. Okay. So we're going to expand it a little bit to Instagram and Twitter. How many of you are on Instagram? Okay, so just about any. All right. So here's the thing. Here's the rule. The prize mechanic for tonight is that you have to either ask a question of our wonderful panel here, and it better be a good question. Jokes. Can it be a stupid question? Whatever you feel pertinent that you really want to ask. But we will judge you, and we'll judge you on how good your question is. And if it's really a good question, then you may win this mysterious package behind me. Or if you post something really freaking awesome on social media, on Instagram and Twitter, hashtag Heavy Chef, just get the spelling right, and we will pick it up and we will announce the prize at the end of the evening, because the team of tax and fiduciary specialist attorneys at Investec sitting at the back will be pouring through it. I'm joking. Actually, there's no freaking tax and fiduciary specialists. So that actually brings me to the next point of order, which is that we actually do have a tax and fiduciary specialist attorney at Investec. A wonderful host tonight, Miss Zinhle Novazi. Please can we give it up for Zinhle Novazi. She also happens to be a director at Heavy Chef Foundation, and if you're interested in supporting the foundation, please go to heavychef.org, not .com, and check it out. And then just to introduce our two speakers tonight, I'm super stoked because we've had them at Heavy Chef before, and they both have recipes on the Heavy Chef platform, which I do encourage you to go and check out because they're both really popular and have been downloaded tons of times, and a lot of the questions that we've actually gathered are coming from those recipes. So we have Landie Stevens, who is the founder, the Grand Emperor, the CEO, and I don't know what other titles I can make. She actually said she has no titles, so I can make it up. So I don't know. I'm kind of winging this. But anyway, she's the main cheese at Landie Stevens Consulting. And then we've got Jason Luboyera at 360 DigiSales. Also no title, so Grand Emperor, the High Mighty Lord, CEO, founder, and so on. Coffee maker, there we go. He's the chief coffee maker, which is actually a very esteemed position to hold, because I also have that position. And please can we give it up for our two guests tonight. Okay, over to you, Zinhle.
Thank you so much, Fred. Good evening, everyone. How are you feeling today? I feel like there's no enthusiasm. I understand it's a Wednesday and it's not a Friday, but we really have to get pumped up because today we have two awesome heavy chefs. I'm just going to ask you for a second time, how are we doing tonight? That's more like it. Thank you. So I had an opportunity to kind of wing my way around you. I haven't met all of you, and I'm sure some of you are seated next to somebody who's never seen you before. So take this opportunity to look next to the person to your right or your left and just quickly say hi to them, find out how they're doing. Maybe just a quick one-liner. You never know. You might meet somebody really cool. Have a moment there. I can see someone's already asking for a number. Let's save that for the networking part. I'm just going to bring it back. We'll have plenty of times to connect and network. But if I can have your attention once again, tonight is really an opportunity for us to really give you guys an opportunity to leave here feeling inspired, to connect to other entrepreneurs, to hear from our heavy chefs so that you're able to then go back into community and do the work. And obviously, do this in community and share the knowledge with other entrepreneurs. That's really what is at the core of why we do what we do at Heavy Chef. So just to kind of begin this session this evening, I must confess, I'm a fan of Jason and Landie's work. I studied their bite on sales, and I'm kind of like, we had this conversation earlier, Jason, where I was like, Jason's intro into sales, when he was explaining into his bite, he was explaining using Wolf of Wall Street and Jordan's role. And like, if we think about it, we kind of, when we think about sales, we think about this ruthless person who really is about the bottom line and, forever pestering the customer and making sure that at the end of the day, they meet their sales target. So Jason and Landie, that's kind of the misconception most people have around sales. Can you kind of debunk that and tell us, what does it take to be a brilliant person in sales, and what kind of values underpin that brilliance?
So has everybody watched Wolf of Wall Street? Yes? No? Maybe? And yeah, it's very, very correct what you say, where Jordan is, he's very brash, he's arrogant, and he's a bit pushy. But I think if you actually peel back all of that, Jordan is actually a very, very, very good person, right? He's a people's person, and maybe to answer your question, that he really focuses on three things. He talks about being sharp as a tact, right? You speak well, dress well, and then he talks about being a expert in his field, right? And then the third one, which I think is super, super important, is being enthusiastic, right? So yes, there's different personalities and all this type of thing, but I think those three things are super important. But I'd like to also just maybe think about it in the context of South Africa and business today, right? Because those three things you could say are a given. Like most salespeople are like smart, they know their stuff, they're enthusiastic. But I think what's really important is being proactive, right? Looking at what your customers are doing online, finding out what they've done before, looking at their LinkedIn, and taking that and being a solution provider or even an inside driver to the conversation, not just actually selling product. So I would add that fourth one is being proactive as a salesperson is super, super, super important.
Thanks, Jason. Do you agree, Landie, with what Jason said?
Yeah, I agree with Jason. I think what I could just add in is belief in self, belief in product, belief in what you do. I think that's the driver when you enter in the sales environment, because we all know the biggest place that you're going to find a rejection is in sales. So if you don't believe in yourself, you don't believe in your product, you're going to start getting negative. So for me, a salesperson inherently, and I started my career off in sales and then grew throughout my life. For me, what drove me is believing that what I'm selling is a good product. And then ultimately believing that the person that I'm selling to needs my product. So it's being that person having that X-ray vision to be able to match what the product is to what the client actually ultimately needs. Because I think the biggest downfall what salespeople are facing right now is they've got this product and they're going into the world and they're getting one rejection after the next, is what is the driver behind what you're doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? And if you understand your why, it doesn't actually matter what the negativity is that comes against you, because you're doing it for a specific reason.
No, that is absolutely sharp, like understanding the core values that underpin that. And on that question, let's say I've got all these properties that you've both mentioned. What I realize now, having been away from the country for a year, is that honestly, South Africa finds itself economically in a very difficult position where, we're faced with a high inflation rate. Some of our Heavy Chef community members, they're in the food and beverages, hospitality industry. And now you understand that your clients are struggling financially. So how do we increase sales, but without tarnishing the relationship we've built with clients? Because obviously you want that longevity with your clients going forward, despite economic turmoil. So How does one then get that?
I actually am not much of a heavy chef in this, so I'm a bit skinny. But I've actually started. No, I've actually started working with a company called Digital Tribe, right? And what they do is they're in the customer experience space. And to your question, how do you increase sales while you've already had these these strong relationships? Sales is really about communication, right? It's really about communicating value, how can I drive that value and take you from A to B. So I believe as South Africans, we should actually look at different channels of communication. And that channel of communication to increase sales is WhatsApp, right? WhatsApp is very, very powerful, especially in the context of Africa, India, and so forth. So as an entrepreneur, South African entrepreneur, I would say, wow, I've been doing Facebook, I've been doing I've been doing my website, I've been doing, let's say Instagram. Increasing a touch point of your customer experience in the hands of your client is it's almost actually even free. It's just that you have to induct your team to have that channel. So I would encourage looking at WhatsApp as a channel when you're trying to increase your sales in this economic time.
Okay. Landie?
The biggest question that I find when I coach salespeople and sales managers is the biggest objection is price. So I spend a lot of time working with salespeople and sales managers and entrepreneurs to help them overcome the price objection, which is inherently what you were talking about. And the only way you can overcome a price objection is to ultimately find why is the person wanting to buy and connecting with them at a deeper level. Because if you're going to sell superficially, you're going to not close the deal. But if you're going to figure out what the client or the customer is wanting it for and understanding why they're wanting it, you can match your product or service to the need. And that doesn't just come in one meeting. It comes in building a relationship and understanding the organization, understanding the person that you're dealing with, and then selling based on the need. Because if you can uncover the need, the price doesn't matter. And that's a process. So gone are the days, I've been in sales for 27 years. Gone are the days when you walk into an organization and you walk out with a sale. It doesn't work that way. We all know this now. It takes a lot of time to build a relationship, and there's that cliche of people buy people first. Yes, they do. But they won't buy from you unless they trust you. So salespeople need to evolve. I always call it, it's not the salesperson anymore. You need to partner with your clients. You need to become the trusted advisor. Because when you become the trusted advisor, price doesn't matter. Because if you're sitting in front of an organization and you're saying that this is the best product for your organization and it's going to solve these needs, they're not going to ask you the price is too high. They're going to buy the product because they trust you inherently.
Yeah, and I'd actually like to add to that, right? So salespeople need to evolve, right? And if you think about how to evolve, you've got to change. You've got to, stop doing what you used to do before. And I think that goes to my point about being proactive, right? Because if you're going to be a trusted advisor, you're somebody who's looking beyond the product. You're looking at, okay, in context of my client, what's happening in their world, right? What can I offer them and maybe, create this new version of my product which will actually be a greater fit for them. And I think, let's say in the ad space, if you're selling, marketing ad space, a lot of us looking as salespeople are looking for new customers all the time because that's our mandate. I need to acquire new customers. But then if you look at it, sometimes they say, 80% of your revenue is coming from 20% of your clients. So especially now, it's hard to acquire new clients. It's people don't trust us and all these things. So sometimes looking within and becoming a trusted sales advisor and saying, who's bringing most of our revenue? How can we sell more to them, right? Because if someone's paying us about 50K and 10% of that is a new client, but then you uplift that 50K by 5%, you've already paid for 2 clients of acquiring a new client, So sometimes looking within, and I do agree with you, being a sales advisor and evolving into more of a consultative sales is super important.
Thank you both for that. I actually love that because I think a lot of businesses, especially people in the product space, are facing those price queries where clients are questioning your prices. But if you build that brand loyalty and that customer relationship, and you ensure that whatever product or service you're providing actually meets your client's needs. And again, the need to evolve over time during different financial circumstances, and also kind of like evaluating your marketing strategy, seeing whether certain social media platforms are maybe perhaps better suited for your customers that you're trying to target. Before I move on to the next question, I'm just going to say that I will be opening up questions to the floor. So if anyone is itching, I will give you guys the platform to directly ask Landie or Jason a question. So do prepare yourself in the meantime. But Jason and Landie, kind of one of the other, I feel like, areas that's kind of holding entrepreneurs back is the inability to systematize a sales strategy. How important is it to have a systematic process of how your sales strategy takes place? Because some people, your sales strategy might just be a black file somewhere at the back of the office in the corner somewhere, and it hasn't been systematized. So how important is it to have that? And can you recommend any tools that people should be thinking about in the sales space?
That's a very big question with a very big answer. So I'm going to start at the beginning. Sales strategy is a cliche and it's a big word. And I think that people overuse it, but yet overuse it verbally, but they under-implement it. Strategy starts at the top. Ultimately, strategy starts with the owner of the business, your exco, your rexco, your owners, the people that own the business. That's where the strategy starts, because it starts with vision and it starts with mission. Then from that, it goes down to the management or into the sales team. You cannot expect a salesperson to go out and sell and create a strategy unless you, the owner, or the owners of the business, actually have got a vision and mission. So a strategy needs to start towards the end of a year so that it's ready for the beginning of the year. And then that needs to be communicated to those that are going to be selling whatever product or service that you have. From that point, the salesperson then can take the bigger vision, the bigger strategy, and then implement a strategy based on their area or their product or their area of influence. What then happens is they would then need to sit down and plan and strategize based on where they need to go. So if we take it from the top, the communication needs to be, what is my expectation for my sales team? What do they need to achieve by the end of 2023, let's for example? What is my expectation or roadmap that they need to follow? And this is something that an individual salesperson very rarely can do on their own unless they're senior. A sales manager is key and core at this because you need to guide them. Salespeople tend to be ADHD. They go all over the place. The minute they see something good, it's shiny, shiny, shiny. We go down this way, and then they move. Okay, we know this. So as a sales team, unless you've got a really strong salesperson that can take a strategy and run with it, they're going to need an anchor. And the anchor is your sales manager. But the sales manager also needs an anchor, which will be the next level up, however big your organization is. Okay. If you are an entrepreneur that is running a sales team, you are the anchor for the business and you are the anchor for the sales team. So the sales strategy, getting back to that in terms of tools and all the rest, I'm a firm believer in a CRM system. You have to have a CRM system because where you're putting the information. If you're gathering information about clients, businesses, whatever the case may be, you need to be inputting it into a system that you can keep history. Because if I'm a salesperson and I get hit by a bus today and Jason needs to take over from me tomorrow, how is he going to know what I've done? So a CRM system. Next system that I agree with is a diary, electronic. Some salespeople like to have a hard one, but I would say electronic diary is probably the best one, whether you use Microsoft 365 or whatever the case may be. Because planning, it goes down to the core of planning. You need to be planning at least 3 months in advance. And most salespeople look at me and think I'm nuts. But if you've got a strategy and you know where you're going, it's easy. So start with planning a week in advance, then 2 weeks in advance, but a minimum of 3 months. You need to be knowing what you're doing 3 months in advance. Why? Because if you're not, how are you going to build a pipeline? How are you going to know what you're getting within 3 months? You're going to have good months, you're going to have bad months. But if you're not building a pipeline, which is the next tool, is a pipeline, is absolutely non-negotiable. The next one is a KPI, Key Performance Indicator System. I developed a KPI system about 15 years ago. I was managing a team of salespeople and sales managers nationally, and I was a control freak, so I needed to know what they were doing. My KPI system gives you a dashboard for the sales manager to know exactly what the salespeople are doing. When I talk about the KPIs, it's what are the activities that drive sales? Most people are stuck on this target. It's not the target. We need to be focusing on what drives target, which means how many calls, how many meetings, what are your ratios, what are your meetings, what are your calls to meetings ratio, what is your meetings to quotes ratio, what is your quotes to closing ratio? And the KPI actually drives that. Most salespeople think, oh, that's micromanaging. No, it's not. Because if you don't know what you need to be doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, how are you going to get to the end of the road? How are you going to meet your target at the end of the day? And the target, that the KPI actually breaks down. If you're really good at setting up a KPI, I sit with managers daily to set up a KPI that actually drives the target. So, and a KPI is not the same for each individual. I don't believe in painting every salesperson with the same brush. If your KPIs are done correctly, it focuses on the individual. So you will have the general pointers. But if you've got a really good salesperson that is really good at cold calling, but they're really shoddy at closing deals, you would obviously focus on the closing at a higher rating or higher weighting. But if a person is not good at telesales, but they're good at closing, you would obviously put the bigger weighting on the telesales and on the meetings. So a KPI is really important, not only to drive the salesperson so that the salesperson needs to do on a daily, know what to do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, but also for a sales manager or the entrepreneur running the sales team to be able to direct, measure, and manage the salespeople. I always say what isn't measured isn't managed. So if you're sending your salesperson out there and they don't know what they need to be doing, they cannot measure it. You cannot manage it.
Thanks, Landie, for that answer. Jason, I don't know if you want to add on to what Landie's mentioned.
Sure, like it's almost, you know, when you prepare a Michelin star meal, you don't want to mess it up. So, but let me maybe give you the postre, the dessert, my little short say on this. So, like, your question was the value around systemizing and what tools you should use,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Keeping on the analogy of food. You know when you go to France and you eat a croissant, right? That croissant tastes good, and they probably said, okay, this is how much butter needs to go in there. This is how long it needs to go into the oven. But then when you go to Italy, you want to taste the same croissant, right? And that's probably the best thing to do is systemize what you do, and that's the value around the strategy, right? Because strategy brings around management. Like you said, strategy. And if you systemize it, you can record and measure and improve. So that's the value around systemizing things. And I would say to add in terms of tools, CRM, super, super important. I think that's the baseline, right? And then calendar is interesting, but I would say because we're all busy people and sometimes you can't even hire a salesperson, you are the main salesperson as the CEO, electric calendar. So like a booking calendar. And you can systemize that in terms of when you want to have meetings on Wednesdays and Thursdays because my energy is the best. Here's my calendar. Like, pick a time when it suits you, right? I think that's also super important. And then, last one is more of a habit. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are super busy. How can you automate that if an inbound lead comes, you reply immediately, at least within the first 30 minutes. And you can do that through, maybe talk to the website people there, how you can automate that, and that actually creates a different experience, right? So I would say those three things are on top of what you were saying, and hopefully the dessert is tasty.
Jason, Landie mentioned reaching KPIs, and you spoke earlier a little bit on WhatsApp. How important is it, even though we're in sales, that we need to be able to dabble into digital marketing, so understanding the importance of navigating our ways around social media? I find it quite intimidating that a person can get lost in the algorithm of your Instagrams and navigating through LinkedIn. So, and also if you can just touch on like traffic, when you're trying to get traffic to your website, how to navigate SEOs and so on. So basically my question being that how important is it as salespeople that we need to have the right knowledge to understand how to navigate digital marketing, and how do we ensure that we don't get lost in the algorithm? Because that can really give us the insight into reaching our KPIs.
Oh, the big beast algorithm. So I think let's maybe even make it even simple. Like if you've only got about 24 hours in a day, and like let's say those are 24 chips, and you're gonna have to play 5 of the chips for your family, and then you've got to play the other 5 chips for your team, and then now there's 5 chips for management team, and then there's there's only a few other chips to play in this social media space, and now that probably brings you to this anxiety because you're like, oh geez, there's so many things I need to do. I don't even know what to do. I don't know where to start. So that's your reality. You've got 2 chips. So what I would do, right, is think about your customer, right? Where is your customer, if you're in the B2C space or the B2B space, spending their time, right? Most B2B clients aren't spending time on LinkedIn. Oh, they are actually. Maybe your clients, your B2C clients are spending on Instagram. And if you've only got 2 chips, you've got like technically 2 hours, focus your time there. And as a salesperson, as a business person, you've got to constantly be learning. So then learn that platform and take that bet. Make sure your strategy is focused on that. And that's how I'd say you beat the algorithm, because you will never know the algorithm, but you actually know where your customers are spending their time, learning about your customers, listening to how they speak, and then you can drain that into how you ask your questions to your clients and your sales. So yeah, digital marketing, sales, they should definitely not be working in silos. You definitely need to look at how they work hand in hand to make music, because that's how modern day sales is. You know, there's these terminologies: social selling, demand gen. These are all the evolution of marketing and sales coming closer together. So yeah, to answer your question there, entrepreneurs, you just need to look at the reality of your life and how your business is growing and say, okay, great, my customers are on this one platform, I need to focus on this platform. Later on, there will be time and space to go onto the other platforms.
Yeah. I think if actually there's a common theme here is that we often have to zero in. You really have to understand who your customer is, what they want, and where they spend most of their time. And with that being said, keeping within the theme that Jason has beautifully started around food, we're going to open up the buffet to the audience.
Hello, hi guys. My name is Rifila Gava, and I run Soapbox Films with Brendan Steen over there. And so originally, I was a creative producer. I made shit, I didn't have to sugarcoat anything, and it was amazing. Now I have to do sales, and I am sales exhausted. Like, seriously. But we have to keep going, otherwise, you know, literally the survival of our business depends on us making these sales. But honestly, I am not a social chameleon. I get easily discouraged. So, like sales right now for me, I just want to make cool stuff, you know. And for us, video has always sold itself. But now we have to go out and search because it is a saturated market. How do we combat sales exhaustion, especially if you're not a salesperson having to, you know, play in that same field, mind you, with salespeople?
Rufilo, thank you so much for that question. Landie or Jason, how do we combat sales exhaustion? I feel your pain, I feel your struggle there, especially if you're not naturally a salesperson. Landie, it looks like we'll have to hear from you.
Okay. Sales exhaustion is a very known factor that we're dealing with right now. I think we're dealing with a customer base that is really tired of hearing from salespeople. Who's received spam calls today? Yeah. So if you want to combat sales exhaustion, you need to really do your prep. You need to really understand who are you going to call or who you're going to visit. I think with COVID that's come along, the sales platform has really changed. It was pretty much on its head. Things are starting to open up a bit more now, but we still can't just go knock on the doors. It's not your typical just walking into a business and having to see whoever we need to see, because there's the gatekeepers are on steroids right now. If you're picking up the phone, it's another story. You can't just say, hi, how are you? My name is. The statistics say that you have 30 seconds to catch somebody's interest, and I actually think it's probably a bit less. If I take it, I had a telesales call today, and immediately I'm not interested. So if you're talking about sales exhaustion, it's about preparation. So if I have to give you some advice, is why are you phoning or why are you visiting a specific client? What are you wanting to do there? And lead with that. So I would do the research, and when I coach and I train salespeople, I have the same question. My scenario, and it works, is to figure out if I'm going to go and see Jason, and I know that he's in the industry of digital, well, let's take insurance. And I need to go and see him, and I have a product that I need to go and sell to him. I already know in that industry there are certain problems and certain needs that I can fulfill, that I can change the status quo of. So what I would do is I would say, hi, Jason. My name is Landie Stevens. I'm calling from Landie Stevens Consulting. If I could solve X problem for you, would you want to know more? Immediately you've got the person's attention, because I'm talking straight into a problem that he has and he wants the solution. At that point, if it's a telesales call, I wouldn't give him the solution on the phone. I would say to him, are you available tomorrow or the next day for me to come through and see you? Okay, so that's a telesales call. If it is face-to-face, I would do exactly the same, but I would have done my prep. Sales right now is not an easy game. It's probably one of the hardest careers that you can choose. But if you do it right, it's exceptionally rewarding, and you're making a difference. You're making a difference to the people that you're going to see. And that's where the mindset needs to change. You're not there to sell a product or a service. You're there to change your life and the life of the company that you're going to go and see. So if you go in with that I'm here to change your life, I'm here to solve a problem, I'm here to address a need, you change it. So don't go in like a salesperson. You're going to get cut off at the knees. Okay? Does that help?
Just to add 2 cents, you should probably reflect on yourself, right? Like, what is really causing you exhaustion? Like, is it the rejection? Is it constantly, the anxiety of picking up the phone? Because it's more of like, if I understand the word exhaustion, it's like an energy thing, right? So if I think about your situation, I've definitely been in it too, is what my boss always used to say, like, when is your power hour? Right? When are you at your best energy to get over this mountain? But then to touch on Landie's point, when you're going about to go to your power hour, have you done your research, right? So that you weed out the people who are not going to be your customers. They're not going to be your A's and B's, right? Leave the C's for Friday when you're with your mates and you're like, okay, I was supposed to hit 25 calls. Let me do the C's. And, oh yeah, I'm outside. That's what I would do. So like really think about your energy, and then have you put in the right research, and you've got these A's and B's, and the A's are like, your walruses. You can't miss these calls. So this is you doing on Wednesday just after a run. You've done all the right things, and then you get on that call. You're sending that email. And I personally, from my experience, is that you won't feel exhausted after that, even if it's a rejection, right? Why? It's because you've done your best, and they're the one losing out. And again, like, it's a mindset thing. So I think explore the exhaustion piece. Like, are you just like picking up the phone on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then you're getting on Friday, and there's this constant rejection? You could be losing out and just getting on the phone with bad energy. Now that's your problem, right? So I would think about that. Look at my energy, and then look at systemizing and doing the research before your power hour.
Hi everyone, my name is Nokanya Mwabe, and I'm a founder of Matawi Mead. I jumped up when Hilton asked the question because I had a similar question to pose, but from a different perspective. I find that as a business person who's come to this sort of entrepreneurial venture later in life, I struggle with the speed of change within especially the marketing and the sales game. And so I find two struggles, and thank God for Heavy Chef, otherwise things would be far worse. One, I find when I read, it's already obsolete, which is why I say thank God for Heavy Chef. But I also find like a disjuncture in the language. So I have a person who's responsible for sales who's telling me what we need. I have to make a cost-benefit analysis, but I actually don't understand what they're telling me. And then they'll come to me when it's strategy time, and I find that I can't brief them in language that they understand either. So there's that little bit of an impasse. So other than Heavy Chef, where should I be looking for like the discourse and the changes and the implications and the cost implications? Where do I go?
Firstly, kudos for starting with Heavy Chef. But I will hand this one over to the experts.
By the way, that's our next speaker.
Yes, 100%. That's our next speaker.
Okay, I'll grab that one. You know what, when you don't understand a sales team, what I would suggest that you do is you find somebody that does. So a coach, a sales coach, is absolutely awesome to have on your side, because what they will do is they'll be the mediator between you and your team. They will get your understanding, your vision, your DNA, your passion, and they will equate that into a strategy, and they'll be able to interpret that into the sales manager and then into the sales team. So they will almost be the mediator, and they will then coach you in terms of what is relevant for you, because I agree with you. When you're reading stuff and when you're watching stuff, it does get old very quickly. So it's not about what's happening out there. You need to be focusing on what's happening inside for you, because there's a whole lot of stuff there. Sales is so massive. The topic of sales is huge. And what is relevant for me may not be relevant for you and for the next person. So what a sales coach does is they chuck out the stuff that is not relevant, and they find the stuff that is, and then they mediate between you and the sales team. Because what you find is a sales manager or a sales team are very demanding. They're like kids. They want everything all the time. They want the best of everything all the time. So it's about saying, this is what you need, and this is what the organization can afford, and this is what's going to drive the sales with the best that I can offer you right now.
Practically how I did it, so I never knew much around like digital selling and things like that, and I actually used HubSpot. So HubSpot is a CRM platform, and they actually have a learning platform on the back of it, and you can actually sign up for HubSpot and use all their learning material forever, right? And it's constantly being updated. Like they've said HubSpot could almost move into being the MBA of sales and marketing. So if, as a business owner, I don't know if you've got sales managers and so forth, upskilling yourself with the terminology and so forth for free is where I would start. Now, you've got this new language and things like that, but you need to go and test it, which is, again, I'm talking from what I did, is then like 99% of people don't get what they want because they just don't ask, right? So I would encourage you to maybe look at the room, even speak to Fred, right? And say, Fred, CRO. I was listening and I learned about CRO. What does it mean? You're gonna engage someone who's just loves talking about business and test your theories, right? So that's what I would do. Those two practical things. Go check out HubSpot, and then build your confidence in terms of saying, okay, great. I'm gonna go ask someone in my industry who's perceived as a professional or expert around a certain topic that you're finding that friction and that disengagement, and then you can also ask about cost because they most likely done that. So yeah, that's what I would do.
Hello, my name is Joshua Byrne, and my company is called Trail Digital, and we offer SEO. My question is specifically to Jason. I wanted to find out whether you had a tailored approach when you went into sales meetings, or is it sort of quite strategic? Do you tailor it according to who you're going into the meeting with, or is it?
Yeah, great question. Right, and I would hope everybody has a tailored approach. Why? Because let's look at the two main categories of different sales. Like, you get an inbound lead, and that inbound lead is most likely educated about what you do and what you can offer. So it's a total different way of approaching someone if they're already informed. And then there's an outbound lead, which most likely you've gone out and fished for, and now you almost have to win them over with more information. So already those two approaches need to be done very differently, because if I approach an inbound lead reiterating, oh wow, I can help you with this, they most likely read it on your website, right? So you're wasting their time, right? And then it's vice versa, where the person who doesn't, you've got to win them over in terms of, like, they call it wooing. So I'd say, to begin, that's yes, and that would be the approach. But then if you can dive even deeper into each of them, like the inbound lead that, is won through a website or it's won through your different channels, being proactive and saying, let's say you hit my website and I can really see, like, your name and what you do. I'll go check out your website. I'll go check out your LinkedIn. Now I'll build this profile around you and I'll sell myself back to you. I don't know, I'll be like, wow, okay, geez, I saw that you're 30 under 30. Oh, wow, talking about you and gaining that interest about that person, because they already know that I'm going to ask for money from you because you've inboxed me. So I would sell myself back. I'll sell yourself back to yourself, right? And that's sort of approach I do there. Otherwise, an inbound lead, you should be closing that within a certain amount of time, right? And then an outbound lead, my approach would be, I like to call it like the wooing, right? Again, being proactive and making sure that, you're creating this customer persona around the person. But you've got to now understand that person needs absolute certainty in like three things. Firstly, that you are the person that can offer the solution. Your company and product is the one that can provide it. And lastly, that you're confident yourself that you're going to actually provide more than that, right? So then again, there's like, if there's a spectrum and you're at 0 now of certainty, your strategy, your approach is to say, how do I get them from 1 to 2 to 3 about certainty? And that's got to be in your pitch, right? Talking about why you are the right person. Talk about, case studies, why your company is right. And that's what you would do for an outbound. So it's moving that. It's all about certainty, right? Doesn't matter if you're like the best. How can you make that person feel certain that you're going to provide them? So looking at that approach, yeah.
Thanks, Jason, for that answer. I kind of want to go back to some of the questions our online community had posted to us. And I think earlier, Landie, you mentioned the word micromanaging. And I think there's often this disjuncture when you're leading a sales team, whether to micromanage or whether to sort of sponsor and lead. And I know your introduction into sales was more through like sponsorship. And I find it difficult sometimes, like there's a tendency to want to micromanage when people don't know what they're doing so that you make sure that they meet their target. And there's also the, we want to veer more towards making sure that people feel confident and equipped to sort of meet their target. So which approach, and Jason, also feel free to hop in on this one, should we be taking when we're building and leading a sales team? Is it micromanaging or is it sponsorship and mentorship?
Definitely not micromanaging. Years ago, I had a big sales team, and my mantra used to be is, if you can manage yourself, I'm not going to manage you. I'll guide you, I'll coach you, I'll be there to support you. But if you don't manage yourself, I'll micromanage you, and you don't want me to micromanage you. If you're looking at from managing a team, if you are telling them what your expectation is, and they know what the outcome is, and you're guiding them, and you're coaching them, and you're walking the path with them, there's no need for micromanagement. I think it goes right to the beginning of the recruitment. If you're recruiting people, and you trust the person that you've recruited, and you know that they've got the skills and they've got the history that you're needing, you won't need to micromanage if you communicate what your expectation is. I always talk, if you think of a triangle, there's 3 main aspects that drive results. And the first aspect is skills, the next one is activities, and everything hinges on mindset. So if you're recruiting a very junior person, obviously they won't generally have the skills, but they will have the mindset, the attitude, which I personally, if I recruit, that's the first thing that I look to. I don't generally look for your high flyers, because then you've got to manage their expectations and you've got to mold them. When you're recruiting, I love to employ people that have got no experience, but they've got the attitude, because then you can mold the person and you can work with them and you can grow them. And for me, it's about seeing a flower flourish, imparting wisdom and being able to empower and equip and encourage people. So when you're recruiting, that is the first thing. So look for mindset. Then it's looking at the skills. If your salespeople have got the skills sorted, then you manage the activities, not micromanaging. It's giving an expectation of what are you wanting to achieve, which means that the target at the end of the day. So what are the ratios? How many calls? How many meetings? How many quotes? Those are the benchmarks that you need to be looking at. Then you'll find that people manage themselves. When you give people freedom to manage themselves within a framework, within boundaries, they will manage themselves. The minute you make those boundaries too small, what you're going to find is rebellion. And that's when you're going to end up micromanaging. And none of us in this room have the time to micromanage. Micromanage takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of time from the person managing the team. So if you are having to micromanage people, there's a problem. Either the person is a problem or you the problem as the manager. Because if you cannot give your people freedom and you do not trust them, you should never have employed them in the first place.
Geez, Landie, that hit home. I'm having to reflect on some of my behavior too. Just to kind of put a spin on that, in Landie's triangle, one of the points is skills. We actually had a community member who asked, why isn't sales taught at school? Do you think that sales should be taught from, let's say, primary, high school level already, so that by the time students leave high school, they're equipped with the necessary skill set?
Am I allowed to go back to the question?
Yes, please, add on to that.
Maybe to challenge, micromanagement. It's not the right thing to do. So I'm a skinny chef in terms of managing people. So I've only managed, in terms of sales, direct people, right? So I've only managed about 3 salespeople. Landie's probably done, 500, 1,000 plus. Heavy chef, not that she's heavy, but heavy chef. But so I've been in bigger sales teams as a sales rep, and micromanagement is not a thing. Like, even for, let's say you're a high performing rep, but you feel like someone's like breathing over you. It's not a vibe. But if I think about the context of how sales is done today, right? Most of your sales reps are at home, right? Most of the sales reps, there's that sales culture is very difficult to do now. So I think the word micromanage probably as business owners needs to be challenged, right? And what I mean by that is that there most likely needs to be a lot more management structural steps in your sales department now more than ever if you want to get business done. So what I mean by that is like the step-by-step guide on how you implement things into your CRM. The things when you, for instance, when you're doing calls, when you're not doing calls, right? Because you just don't have that environment to nurture a, autonomous way of doing sales. So just not to say that micromanagement is the thing, it's just probably something as business owners to be like, wait a minute, because I don't have the culture and I can't make my salespeople really autonomous in their behavior, I'm most likely going to need to put structures in place which might look like micromanagement. But again, it's top down. If you're a manager, how do you speak to this bigger vision of this is the purpose of why we put these things here, so that the growth of the company can actually happen. This is why we're doing it. It's not to micromanage you. So yeah, something to explore there. And then, so skills.
Yeah.
Okay, skills. What skills, why?
Should we be putting sales skills in the education system, like starting from high school or even primary school? And actually, let's just have a theoretical debate around this. Is sales something that can be taught, or is it something that needs to be put in practice?
I do believe it can be taught. It's something that a mom is probably the best salesperson because they're selling their values to their children, right? But I guess it's just the word sales is being used, it's got this negative connotation. So if we could take that negative connotation away and understand that sales is actually like like building relationships, where it's like something that you're constantly doing throughout your life, then I believe it could be, it's taught every day, you know? So to answer your question, I do believe it's taught. It's just that sometimes you don't want to learn something that you feel bad about. You know, I don't want to learn about maths because apparently it's not going to help me. But if I fully believe that if sales is going to help you throughout your life, it's going to be taught, then we can. But I think the difficult part is probably building that curriculum around sales, because there's just so many different ways to do it. I think it'll be difficult to like say that's the best curriculum when you talk about sales.
I think in the meantime, we can all look at Heavy Chef recipes for guidance. Landie, a question that we also got from our online community is, and feel free to hop in if you have an answer. How do you recruit for a sales team?
I do a lot of that. I think it's about understanding what you expect first. So if you're recruiting for a sales team, it's about understanding, first of all, what do I want? It's not about the job description. It's about what do I want? What do I want this person to be able to do? And how quickly do I want the person to be able to hit the road running? Those two first questions. The reason why I ask that is because if you don't know what you're looking for, you'll never find it. First one. Second one is there's two types of salespeople you're going to find, and I alluded to that in the previous answer, is are you wanting to train somebody up, or are you wanting to get somebody that's fully experienced? So you need to be able to understand that, because if you're wanting to employ somebody that you need to train up, you need to understand that it's going to take between 3 and 6 months to get this person ready to go out, because you need to equip them and you need to invest time in them, time and money into that person. If you're wanting to get somebody on board that is fully fledged and they're ready to go, you're going to pay. So you need to understand what you're looking for first. Once you've understood that, then you start the interview process. What I've used with some of my clients now recently is there's an online platform called Warmly, where I get salespeople to actually answer a couple of questions that we predetermined, which means that you see them before you interview them, which I find works a lot better than just getting a whole bunch of CVs. Because a CV for me, I don't even interview with a CV. I love to get a gut feel of the person first, before I even look at the CV. Because what you're employing with a salesperson is, can this person communicate, number one, and can they connect? It doesn't matter what's on the piece of paper. Something that I'm going to put out there is salespeople lie. They're the best salespeople, they're going to lie. Okay, so don't believe what's on the CV, first of all. If you like somebody, is bring them in for an interview and have a conversation. Don't go through the CV. Don't go through how many years experience do you have here, and why did you do this, and why did you spend time, and why are you wanting to leave. Don't ask those questions. Have a conversation with the person, because what you're wanting the person to do out there for you is have a conversation with your prospective clients. If they can't have a conversation, they're not the right person. And then determine whether you like them or not, whether you can connect with them a lot, because ultimately you're going to have to manage them. If you can't connect with them, you won't be able to manage them. And if you can't manage them, they're not good for you. Okay. Then it's a case of, okay, do they have the skill? Do they have the experience? But going back to, what are you recruiting? A fully fledged person or a person that you're wanting to train? And then some interview questions that I love checking out is, I don't ask the normal questions. I will have a conversation, and then I will check out, what was the last movie you watched, or what was the last book you read, or what was the last podcast, or what's your favorite color? And then you get the blank look. Something simple. Because what I'm wanting to test there is, can they think on their feet? Because if people in a sales environment cannot think on their feet, they're no good either. And then I will check out a question that may challenge their status quo. So understanding maybe a political question, or something to see if I could offend them. Because if I can offend them, I don't want them working for me either, because they're going to go out to your clients. Your clients are going to chuck objections to them day in and day out, and they're probably going to offend them. So if the person that you're wanting to employ can be offended, can't be trusted out there. So for me, the interview skill is see if they can handle you first before you send them out to the wolves. And you better be good. You better chuck out the tough questions, throw out the objections, but from a personal perspective. So make them feel comfortable first, and then start hitting them to see if they can manage you.
Maybe I can share a quick personal story. Who's business owners? Who is a business owner in here? Right? Oh wow, a lot. Like who has sales people? Like who has? Okay, less. Perfect. Right. So I was fortunate enough to work in a financial firm, and it was great. So I was first taken on as an intern, worked throughout that time, and then I became, sales manager. And the experience was great, and I got to see how to build a sales department, actually worked hand in hand with the CEO. I think that was the best experience because I really got to understand like what really business is. Got sat next to him, saw the stresses and so forth. And that was just amazing, right? And what I learned from that is actually how to build a department. And then I actually got the opportunity to recruit with my CEO. And the experience taught me that, okay, especially now the people who don't have salespeople, it is paramount to firstly understand that have you built your sales system? Because you can get someone in, whether it be a senior person or a junior person, and they will cause havoc. They will cause havoc just because you haven't set up your KPIs. You haven't set up the way you want to sell your baby to the world, right? And I think that's more important because then you blame the salesperson for their for their success of selling your business when you haven't systemized and made it easy for someone else to sell it. So before recruiting and thinking, I think look at, have you set up a internal sales department that really someone should be able to skate into, right? Really feel comfortable that, wow, I've got all the tools. I actually know who I need to speak to. I'm going to make this happen for you, right? I think that's important. I learned that because our department was built, but it wasn't actually a really neat experience for that person who was working with me. And I could just see exactly why.
Thank you both. That answer just ties in so well, your own like lived experience with how important it is. I think both of you are tying a very important theme in this part of mentorship and actually taking the time to get to know your sales team, making everything so personalized. And I like how, Jason, you went back to it's about your baby at the end of the day. So even if you can employ expertise from outside, if it's something you haven't systematized yourself, you can't expect someone else to do that. But I'd like to hand over to you to then field your question to Landie or Jason.
I just wanted to say it's a very enjoyable evening so far, but Monique Erasmus here. I'm actually proud to be a software development student at We Think Code. But the burning question I actually have is, how do you adjust your sales and marketing strategy during a recession? Because you've been in the industry for many, many years, it sounds. And I was just curious as to what was your approach. How did you adapt? And with where the market is going now, I'm quite curious.
In a recession, it gets quite tough. So the first thing, and I actually did a webinar towards the end of last year when we were in the thick of things. And what I actually spoke about is being able to pivot. So the first thing is we need to take stock of what are we selling? What is the product or the service that we're selling? The first thing. And then looking at the industry and the market that we're in and understanding, is our product or our service needed? And is it needed right now? Second to that is, will people pay for it? Because if it's needed and people will pay for it, recession doesn't matter. Okay. I give the example of, everybody knows Marvel. Everybody knows Marvel? Does everybody know that Marvel was their primary business was comic books in the 1990s? Okay. In 1993, they actually were on the verge of bankruptcy. Everybody know that? Yeah. What actually happened was the CEO decided, okay, we need to pivot this business, otherwise we're going to shut down. The reason why they were on the verge of bankruptcy is because everything went onto the internet. So nobody was buying comics anymore. So when you wanted to read something, you'd download it, or you'd read it on the web. So they decided they were going to enter into the movie industry, which was, I mean, comic books to movie. It was like a huge pivot. And initially when they went into it is they got other people to produce it. And I think one of the first movies was Blade, and I think it netted like 570 million. But all that they took home was, I think it was like something like 24 million, something ridiculous. What happened then is they looked at the cost and they pivoted again. And they said, okay, we're now going to produce our own movies. What happened then is when you had the whole Marvel series that came out, they're probably the biggest franchise right now. So from pivoting, if we're looking at a recession, it's about saying, am I relevant? Is my product relevant? Do people need it? And will they pay for it? And if they will, then the money doesn't matter. So I think it's about taking stock of where we are. I'm finding a lot of businesses that I'm dealing with is they keep knocking on the same doors and they keep banging their head on the same walls. Is my product will sell, my product will sell. But we need to be able to pivot or change our product to be able to be marketable. If it's not marketable, it's not going to sell, whether you're in a recession or we're hitting the lights out in the industry. So it's about taking stock.
Yeah, it's a brilliant answer. I think that's such a good answer. And to add on to that, like specifically strategy marketing, right? Strategy marketing, because like product is within, but maybe marketing doesn't have much influence on creating a new product. So let's say, in instance, you can't create a new product, right? Most businesses, what do they do in a recession? Which function do they cut back on first? Marketing, right? And why? I wouldn't actually know why, but I think it's a challenge to look at your product, right, and see if it's still got relevance, right? Will people still pay for it? But then say, okay, let me not cut my marketing budget back, because basically now there's more ad space, there's more attention. You can actually say, wait, boss, listen, look at the data. The data is saying that people are pulling back on their marketing spend. They're not creating more content. So we can actually basically spend less for more eyeballs on our content. But now you need to dive deep into the type of content you're providing, right? Because maybe the shift isn't the product, the pivot is the audience, right? Because who was like in America, they were like, the pet industry. The pet industry boomed in America, right? Because, people at home, and then they probably like new channels on how to get there. But actually what was happening is now who was buying the dog food and the caring for the pet had changed. It's now two people, right, in the household. So now you can actually think about it. Say like, maybe I'm not pivoting my product. I'm pivoting my ideal customer, as well as I'm pivoting my content. And now you just got to think about it and look at the data. The data will show that. It actually shows. I can actually show you that ad spend and content creation, content marketing, and like personal branding, actually companies that invested in their personal brands and their content during a recession actually increased. Where companies who pulled back, depending if they pivot their product, actually didn't increase as fast. And of course, in a recession, you want to catch that wave, because then the later it is, the more money you're spending on everything else.
Hi, my name is Philip. Actually, I've been running a consulting firm for the last 6 years. And during 2020, I started a small VC firm. So I work with a lot of businesses. And one of the most annoying thing is every time you review pitch decks, this is a South African thing, right? They always overestimate the sales. And I have no idea why it's like that. So sometimes you get pitch decks maybe from France. They're always on point. So I just want to understand, maybe there's something I'm missing in South Africa. So I just want to know, why is it that entrepreneurs, when they start, I know they're enthusiastic, they want to get it done, they can make $1 million in a year, but why do you think most entrepreneurs do that? And how can we, it's like when you get a pitch deck, it's hard to crush someone like, this is not realistic, right? So how can we, especially with Heavy Chef, how can we teach people how to approach sales and projections and that, yeah.
Okay, love the question, because I find it too. Generally, what you find is it starts at the budgeting process. So when an organization is busy with their budgets, I always say we need to look at the figures for the last 5 years. So you look at trends. Way back when, I actually reported to an MD, a financial director, and he said to me, Landie, the numbers need to make a forest, because a forest is alive. You cannot have it flat. There needs to be peaks and troughs. So what I find is when I sit with people with budgets and I'm looking at it, and why aren't we meeting our budgets, is they haven't looked at the history. They haven't taken the last 5 years. They've generally taken the last year, and in some cases the last 2 years. But what you find is, in order for you to have a trend, you need to look at the last 5 years. Now you may be asking me, Landie, what if my business hasn't been running that long? I'll get to that one. But look at the last 5 years, because then you can see where the peaks and troughs are over a 5-year period. Then what you do is you look at, okay, I need to increase my business by X% year on year. And that's where the increase comes in. But you cannot increase just based on last year to this year. You need to look at your peaks and your troughs. So generally, I would find in your case is they've probably looked at last year, and last year was a really great year, but the year before wasn't. So maybe they're in a 2-year cycle, which is a good year and a bad year, the same as you have a good year and a good month, or a good quarter and a bad quarter. So you need to be able to read the numbers and then give the increases based on that. Okay. We've just come out of COVID, so it's a bit difficult now. So I would almost try and look at it historically and look at the numbers intently. Because if you just look at the last 3 years or the last 2 years with COVID, where we are now currently, we probably don't have the data to project moving forward. So you're going to have to be a bit of a fundi, a wizard in that case, because our history is a bit on its head right now. So generally it's 5 years, but with COVID having happened, it is a bit tough. But the numbers do tell you a story. So read the numbers. Yeah.
Quick question. So these individuals overestimate their sales, and then what happens? They don't get funding, right? So is it that the pitch of these overestimated numbers specifically doesn't get them funding? Or is it that they don't know how to pitch and lie about those numbers? Because interestingly, you could, numbers, Landie says numbers tell a story. If I was overestimating my numbers, because I would never lie, and I'm not a salesperson, right? You look at this 5-year trend, and just take a scenario, and maybe you could, like you saying, how could we encourage our South Africans to get over the line and get the money? It's not about even if they're lying about the sales or not. We actually need them to get their funding, right? And of course, there could be financial guys who can actually make us model this correctly, use 5 years back, and then a multiple of 6 with the prediction of the sales you have in your pipeline. Great. But I think if we all talk about sales, how can we tell a better story around those numbers, right? And that's what I would say we need to encourage our South African funders, your fund, or the people who are looking for money to do, right? And like Landie's mentioned, because we don't have the data for the next few years, that's a story, right? And that's the trends you need to say that, okay, my numbers are overestimated to you. But did you know that XYZ metaverse, XYZ Kanye West, now it's a different story. And now you're encouraged and you're being like, okay, this guy's ready to sell the shit out of this product. I'm going to give him the money. So that's what I would explore as an idea. But lying is not good. Lying is not good. Lying is not good.
Okay, our last question for the evening.
My name's Camilla, and I'm currently the sales executive of Latitudes Online. It's essentially the fastest growing marketplace for contemporary African art on the continent. So because I don't sell needs, I sell wants, experiences, ideas, a lifestyle. Now that I'm working online, I'm curious to hear your opinion specifically on bots, where it becomes increasingly automated and pushy, and you lose that personalization that is offered with a product that is a luxury product, essentially.
Are you using bots?
No,
Okay.
but I'm just curious to...
Do you feel like bots is going to like erode the value of your initial product?
It could potentially, because buying, or the experience of buying art is as important as the piece itself, because it's going to sit in someone's home. So they're going to remember the experience of acquiring that product. Well, I shouldn't call art a product, it's crude, but yeah.
100%. So if I ever have to pivot to a new type of salesperson, is experience. The new marketing is experience, customer experience. Totally believe that. Like, if anything, and you don't know where to spend money as a business owner, and you've got so much money to spend on marketing, I would invest in customer experience. Super important. But I think now you're not going to run away from bots, right? You're not going to run away from this new child who could be AI, right? And autonomous self-service. Because, like, end of the day, you must understand what your customer wants. Because what you think about art might not be what your customer really thinks about art, right? Yeah. But you can ask them, right? And I think what's important is to explore the idea of bots creating that experience, because more and more people want to experience things by themselves, right? And bots can almost give them that autonomy, whether that be through, okay, I can experience this art from the comfort of my home, and then I've got this AI bot who I'm talking to, and they're guiding me through the experience by myself. But I'm actually prompting that bot, and that's what a bot will do, and that's what a gallery person does. You know, you've got this way of like checking the person out and be like, you know, and you're guiding that person to actually buy something that they probably don't want, but they've got that experience, and that's probably what happens in art. I think. Right?
Okay.
No, I'm joking.
Where the challenge comes in, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, is that with that personalization and getting to know your client, you create the opportunity for repeat sales and a long-lasting relationship. So a bot minimizes kind of the ability to do that.
Yeah, so like I said, I work for this company, Digital Tribe, and that's the business challenge. It's a great business challenge, and that's why we spoke about self-service, but then there's this point of handoff to human, right? And that's where the data, or the how you build your product, your RPI. So how you build it is you can say, okay, since I'm learning so much about people, and there's certain interactions that are quite the same. The moment that this person goes down this customer experience, they go down this journey, and there's this point of like inflection where it's like, this is very now different. You can actually engage with human, right? And that's what you could probably explore, because I don't think you're going to run away from bots. But again, there's always but. But if you do think about the contact experience, you can actually sell that as an exclusivity, right? Yeah. When you feel like the bots are the new way of doing things, and it's cannibalizing your industry. I think that's also quite cool. Like in-person, experiences could be something that you upsell and create as a new product, and it's exclusivity.
We need to wrap it up. I just want to say thank you to Jason and Landie for their expertise, for really sharing their knowledge. We're really about, growing as a community. So I'm going to hand over back to Fred, but really get involved afterwards. We'd love to be in conversation with you. Become part of the community if you haven't already. It's really an awesome opportunity. So thank you so much, Landie and Jason, for joining us this evening.
So I just want to first of all just say thank you again to our amazing sponsors, particularly, Workshop17 for this amazing venue, and obviously the team that's been provided just to make sure everything goes smoothly. which always seems to happen, but always just such a fantastic opportunity to get everybody in the same room and engaging and interacting. Capitalize, ex-Nilo, the crew is here. Please go and chat with them. And in particular, our event supporters right from the beginning. Zero, the most beautiful software in the world, and I'm an avid fan. And of course, PayFast, which is the best payment system in the world. So please go and chat to the crew over here as well from PayFast, and just huge supporters of the entrepreneurial cause. We have a prize, and yeah, the last little point of order tonight, as I mentioned, we had, it was actually in the back behind this curtain, we had a huddle of tax and fiduciary specialist attorneys from Investec. They didn't want to make themselves known, so I lie. It was me and my crew at the back there. And just a special mention to Hilton about transition to the new way of selling, and Joshua about Taylor Meetings. Monique, great question. We had such a lot of, Camilla, kudos for hogging the last question of the day there. You did good. And for selling Latitude. Clearly, we want to sell art from you. But the winner tonight is Refile from, I think it's Soapbox Production. So, Refile, well done. You can come and grab your prize. And I think we all now know the term social chameleon and sales exhaustion. So thank you, Refile, for actually educating us from the audience. And I think we feel that. A lot of us certainly have felt that over the last 3 years. So thank you for that. And guys, stick around, engage, interact, continue the conversations that you've had. Come and bombard the stage, because our two speakers are going to be here, and you have them for a limited time only to ask all those pressing questions that you may have been too shy to do the walk of fame to the mic, and just speak to someone new. Go and say hi, engage, interact. We've been 2 years behind screens. It's time to go and say, hello, how are you? Tell me about yourself. Thank you.